Welcome to the show. I am Margaret Ellis.
And I am Oliver Grant. This is Neural Newscast. Today we are looking at the intensifying pressure on Tehran as the White House sets a hard deadline for a nuclear deal.
Oliver, President Trump spoke at the inaugural meeting of his Board of Peace in Washington on Thursday, and his message was anything but subtle. He suggested we will know within 10 to 15 days if a deal with Iran is even possible. He used his characteristic phrasing, saying that if a meaningful deal isn't reached, bad things will happen. This isn't just rhetoric. It's backed by a timeline that seems to be converging with a massive military movement.
Yeah, it's a textbook example of coercive diplomacy. What's striking is the gap between the diplomatic theater in Geneva and the operational reality on the ground. While Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were meeting with Iranian officials, the military was moving its pieces into place. We have reports that top national security officials were briefed that the full forces needed for military action are expected to be ready by mid-March. That 10-day window Trump mentioned fits perfectly into that preparation phase.
That's remarkable. The scale of this buildup is significant. The USS Abraham Lincoln is already in the Arabian Sea, and the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. was last spotted off the coast of Morocco. If it enters the Mediterranean, we are looking at 2 carrier strike groups capable of generating hundreds of sorties a day. That is a higher intensity than what we saw during the 12-day war last June.
Exactly. And it is not just the carriers. The Soufan Center noted that another 50 combat aircraft, including F-35s and F-22s, have been ordered to the region. We're also seeing E-3 Sentry ADAX planes deployed for real-time command and control. Margaret, from an archivist's perspective, this looks like a system moving toward an inevitable conclusion rather than a flexible negotiation. The Iranian posture on the other side is just as brittle.
Right. It is brittle because the internal context for Iran has changed so much. They are coming off the mass protests in January and the mourning ceremonies for those killed by security forces. The Iranian military is trying to project strength through joint drills with Russia in the Indian Ocean, but they are vulnerable. The strikes last summer on their nuclear sites at Fordow have already degraded their capabilities, even if the full extent remains hidden.
That vulnerability creates a dangerous incentive structure. If the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, feels that a limited strike is coming anyway, he might just withdraw from talks entirely. That is the fear among some regional officials. They have advised the Iranians to take the rhetoric at face value. Oliver, Trump tends to follow through on the threats he repeats daily.
No way is the diplomatic friction going to ease while the friction centers on what a deal actually looks like. The U.S. and Israel want more than just nuclear concessions. They want a scale back of the ballistic missile program and a severance of ties with groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran has agreed to draw up a written proposal, but they have historically refused to discuss anything beyond enrichment.
Which brings us back to that 10-day clock. If the written proposal doesn't move the needle on those wider demands, the diplomatic path effectively closes. Prime Minister Netanyahu has already said Israel is prepared for any scenario and that any response would be something they cannot even imagine. It feels like a coordinated pincer movement between Washington and Jerusalem, Margaret.
The international community is certainly treating it as a countdown. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk urged Polish citizens to leave Iran immediately, warning that the window for evacuation could close within hours. Germany has also started moving non-mission critical personnel out of northern Iraq. These are the quiet signals that institutional players expect the situation to turn kinetic very soon.
It is a high-stakes gamble on the part of the administration. By setting such a short deadline while visibly moving carriers and stealth bombers, they are leaving very little room for de-escalation without a total Iranian capitulation. In systems this complex, once the gears of a major air campaign are fully engaged, stopping them requires a political breakthrough that we simply haven't seen in years.
We will be watching that 10-day window closely. For now, the Ford continues its transit, and the diplomats wait for a response from Tehran that may determine the course of the next decade in the Middle East.
It is a heavy moment for the region. Thank you for joining us today. Neural Newscast is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com.